Welcome to the Moving Data to Enable Cloud-Based Analytics conference call. My name is Karen and I will be your operator for today's call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session. I will now turn the call over to Mr. Mike Downs, Solution Architect for Evolving Solutions. Mr. Downs, you may begin.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate your interest and your time, spending a little bit of time with Evolving Solutions this afternoon. So I'm Michael Downs. I'm a solution architect with Evolving Solutions, which is we're a data company here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis area. And part of my job is that I get the opportunity to meet with a lot of clients and talk to them about various challenges they're having around their data. And one of the reasons that we created this webinar series is we're seeing a lot of trends that are common across a number of clients. This particular webinar, which is the first in the series, sort of reflects a trend I've seen with a lot of people wanting to take advantage of the cloud computing environment and the challenge that goes with getting a large data set into that environment. It's great to be able to turn on that massive environment and be able to do parallel computing and get tasks that couldn't have been done 5 years ago without a huge investment completed for your company, but getting the data there is always a challenge. So that's one of the threads I've seen. I've also seen a lot of companies taking advantage of imaging, video, and audio as part of their work process, whether it's hospitals that are using x-rays and taking images in remote locations and needing to move them back to a main data center, CAD files, digital security cameras, as well as some companies that are taking advantage of mobile phones to either do video or capture pictures as part of their process, whether it's claims processing or other kinds of things. And getting those images to the place that they need to be in order to incorporate them into the business process is always a challenge. It drives a lot of bandwidth needs, and even a large amount of bandwidth doesn't always solve the problem. So what I thought would be helpful for us is to have Tom Crawford, who works for IBM, come join us and talk a bit about one of the solutions that he works with. But again, he's seen an even broader set of people than I have as a worldwide leader for Aspera. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom and let him take us through the webinar.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and thank you everybody that has joined us. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially at the end of not only the month but the quarter and the half. It's kind of a big time of year for people. So what I want to talk to you today is about Aspera, and specifically it's about file and data transfer. The first thing that I always like to bring up is that of security. Whenever it comes to data transfer, whether that be into the cloud or through the cloud or in hybrid environments or just on-prem, the security question always comes up. Know that we have an alphabet soup of customers, shall I say, in the government sector that are using our software to distribute a variety of file types, sensor data, images. You can imagine what some of these three-letter acronym agencies are sharing. It's highly confidential, and security is very critical to them. I bring that up because when I talk to most people, they understand the requirements that these agencies force technology vendors to comply to, and I think that's important that you know that from a security perspective, both in flight and at rest, we have passed a variety of tests. So a little bit about Aspera. You may know about us. We've been around since about 2004, and we are based in Emeryville, California, which, if you don't know, it's right outside of San Francisco. And we were acquired by IBM last year. And what we're known for is the creation of FAST, and that is an acronym for a fast, adaptive, secure protocol. And it's about being able to move bulk data and large files. We've got a variety of patents around the world. We serve a variety of markets. This is just a smattering of them, but to give you an idea, what we end up doing is we're a very horizontal solution. If somebody needs to share files and data sets, machine to machine, or in a peer-to-peer situation, we can support that. Now, we also have global support, as you would imagine. We had that prior to IBM's acquisition. I think that's important for everyone to know because we're very, very used to doing follow-the-sun support should it be necessary. So In a nutshell, what Aspera is all about is moving files and data sets from point A to point B as fast as possible, regardless of the size, regardless of the transfer distance, and regardless of the network conditions. I'd imagine that everybody that's on this webinar has probably experienced some form of a delay in uploading or sharing files and data sets, whether that's from a personal perspective or from a business perspective. I'm sure that everybody has experienced delays, if not the inability to actually share the files. Just before this webinar, I've got a 15 meg file here, and interestingly enough, I think we might have found another prospect for us because we couldn't upload a 15 meg file. Using Aspera, I was able to share it with everybody so that somebody with better connection speed than I have, working out of my home office, was able to actually upload it. So it is a very standard problem that's out there that we're addressing. The reason that it's becoming a large problem for businesses moving files from point A to point B electronically is because of the big data explosion. It's one of the reasons. Big data, it's interesting, 95% of big data is actually unstructured files. A lot of people don't realize that. The reason for that is that file types have grown enormously. Just take this PowerPoint that I've got here. It's 15 meg, and that's because I'm using a bunch of images and the like. And even 3 years ago, PowerPoints weren't necessarily that big. Files are just getting bigger, and the sheer volume, as we all know, is growing exponentially. The other thing that we're all wrestling with is the fact that we've got a diversity of connectivity. We've got terrestrial connectivity, satellite, wireless, and that imposes a lot of restrictions onto any form of a network, specifically, obviously, around the WAN. The key here is that all networks are prone to a performance degradation over distance. It's just a fact of WANs. Now, the other thing that's going on is that most workflows tend to have at least a distance component to them, and that means that you need to share files and data sets from one location to another, whether that's across continents. It depends upon your business and your workflow. But the key here is that we're starting to share content around the world, and that's imposing a bit of restriction on the ability to share that content in a speedy fashion. The third or the fourth thing that's going on is that cloud computing, we've got growing up here or grows up. Reality is, I don't think anybody questions the validity of cloud computing now, and what that means is that people are starting to really migrate to the cloud for different business processes, whether that be a piece of it or for the entire thing. And so people are wrestling with these, what we call trends, and they impose the same restriction onto file sharing, which is speed and reliability. Now, I want to make sure that I give you a definition of what Aspera thinks of it as big data. Big data gets sort of discussed a lot in pretty much every newspaper, every article, every web posting. It's all over the place. You go to LinkedIn and everybody's a big data expert. Sorry, my attempt at a little humor. But the key here is I wanted to make sure that you understand these are the key file types that you can see value from Aspera when you're trying to share those file types. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but this is to dive a little bit more into sort of what the challenge is and how we address it. I'm not going to read every bullet point here, but what we're helping people address is the sheer data size and volume, the speed and performance, the requisite security that's out there, the deployment options. And what I mean by deployment options is the need to be able to be elastic in your deployment option, whether that be cloud-based, a single cloud, or multiple clouds, whether that be hybrid, in other words, on-prem and cloud, or just on-prem. That's a really big challenge for people and something that Aspera helps to address. And the other is you've got a variety of sharing paradigms. You've got a bunch of sort of file sharing options, if you will, that are very, very specific to dragging and dropping a file into their application and then sharing it out the way that they want you to. Now, that's one type of file sharing, and I'm specifically referring to things like OneDrive, Dropbox, etc. Those are one sharing paradigm, but there are also other sharing paradigms, such as file machine-to-machine. You've got sync and replication paradigms and disaster recovery. When you go into point solutions, you limit yourself to their paradigms for sharing. When you go into Aspera, we're an open platform that enables you to basically structure the same governance around your different file sharing and distribution requirements, rather than just going from point solution to point solution. And that leads me into compliance and auditing. As everybody knows, we need to be able to track what's going on and see what's going on in real time. And we need to be able to do that regardless of deployment type. And that's something that Aspera can address. Now, Michael, I think what I'd like to offer is this presentation. I'll be more than happy to make available after the fact so that people can go through this if they want to. But that's up to you, Mike.
Absolutely. We'll definitely make the presentation available to everyone afterwards.
Yep, okay. Now, the key challenge is around TCP. As I mentioned, all networks degrade over distance. Every network out there has latency or round trip time. Every network out there also has packet losses. Now, the further you go away, when you start using a WAN, the more degradation you experience, and the faster that degradation experience happens. Now, TCP is a great technology for WANs, but it is not a reliable technology to share the file types and sizes of today over a WAN environment. As it says, TCP degrades over distance. It just does. Everybody knows that. The other thing is that it's designed for low bandwidth. Right? You may buy a bigger pipe to solve the problem, and you may see a percentage performance increase, but you're buying a huge amount of pipe and not getting that benefit. Now, to address this, people are actually going out and doing things like data compression technology, WAN acceleration, so that you may be going out and buying hardware components to actually help out. They're not really addressing the problem, and they are inefficient solutions. They are basically doing blasting of content, and so it looks like it's doing a little bit of help to solve the problem, and it is in certain cases, but the majority of it is that it's very inefficient, and you're still not getting the benefit and the predictability of the pipe that's available to you. Now, a lot of people, and this is interesting, a lot of people still use mail services like FedEx, UPS, US Mail to ship hard drives around. There is a company that we just closed some business with a week ago, and this is no different than one that we did a little while ago that I think Michael has heard. But they were sending their engineering files from one location to another location across the country by airplane. Because it's a secure file and it had to be in someone's person, they would pay for someone's airline ticket and with a hard drive and let them fly from one location to another, and then deliver the design files and let the engineers on the other side continue to work on those design files. They replaced that process with Aspera, and so now they do it electronically. I'll get into some of what we're doing there. So what we're doing in cloud storage is, the problem that I just talked to you about with TCP is sort of extended when you go to moving content into the cloud. Why? Because HTTP sits on top of TCP. And what ends up happening is that the first bottleneck is no different than what I just spoke about, which is the WAN, right? The degradation across distance. The second bottleneck is the last foot, if you will. It's essentially transferring from an HTTP connection into object storage. So the introduction of movement of data and files to the cloud adds a layer of complexity and another step. So it ends up delaying and reducing the speed of that transfer. So the problem is only extended when you move content into the cloud. So people have tried to solve the cloud problem with sort of a multi-part uploader, if you will. but the problem doesn't go away because it's still leveraging HTTP to deliver the content to kind of a temporary storage and then into object storage. Now, what Aspera does is we fix that problem. Okay, what we do is we make the transfer of content predictable in time, reliability, and security. We have what I will call an elastic algorithm or protocol known as FAST, again, Fast Adaptive Secure Protocol. And what that allows us to do is predict exactly what the transfer time is going to be for any size over any distance for any file. What we end up doing is we use as much of the bandwidth as we're allowed to use. There's not a restriction if we have to throttle down. It's a matter of how much are you going to allow us to use. So the more bandwidth you allow us to use, the faster we're going to go. And the more we are consistent across the distances, across network challenges, we can actually help to improve I/O of devices because we end up throttling back to not overwhelm caching requirements. And so that's what I'm talking about with an elastic algorithm. We make all those calculations on the fly. Importantly, we also have policies that we can have applied so that we play nice with other network traffic, and so that we can prioritize data set types and file types should they appear in the transfer. And I'll get into more of that as we move forward. So the way that we solve this is with Aspera On Demand, and this is when you're moving content into the cloud. This is a bit of an eye chart here, but if I walk through it, hopefully you'll understand a little bit more of what we've got going on. Aspera has a variety of client types that are available, and I'll get into that, but we have browser-based client types, we've got thick client types, we've got client types that allow automated download and upload, we've got mobile client types. Everything within Aspera is API exposed, if you will, so that you can integrate it into your specific application should you want to, or you can actually use our clients if you want to. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter to us. So we support an agnostic strategy, if you will. Yes, we're owned by IBM, so obviously we want everybody on SoftLayer. If you choose not to be on SoftLayer, that's fine. We support Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, Akamai, and Limelight. So Akamai actually uses Aspera when somebody puts content into net storage, and Limelight uses Aspera as well. So the reason I'm bringing that up is I want you to understand that when you look at moving file types and moving content into the cloud, companies like Akamai and Limelight understand the challenge, and that's why we're doing business with them the way we are. And again, it doesn't matter to us what cloud you want to use. You may want to use multiple clouds for different purposes, and we can support that. The key here is what we end up doing is, we have our FAST, essentially a gateway, if you will, that will deliver the content directly to object storage. So we don't have that HTTP delay that I was mentioning before. We remove that. Now, what does that mean? That essentially means, if you take a look on the left, transfer 1, you've got throughput on the top of less than 10 megabits per second. And then with parallel streams, you've got less than 10 to 100 megabits per second. When you're using Aspera Fast, it's a gigabit per second. There's a massive increase in throughput that we have available to you. And if you look at transferring data from within the same cloud, from an EC2 instance in Amazon to an S3 instance, well, look what happens. We end up being able to deliver parallel streams at the same speed that we did when we were going from a WAN to the Amazon cloud. The reason I bring that up is the consistency. That's what we can do. We don't really care where it's going. We basically enable someone to predict how long it's going to take and to make sure that it goes as fast as possible. So what we've done is we've turned the problem into a math problem. I know that I'm spending a bit of time here, but I think it's really important to understand because what we've done is distance is irrelevant to us. Whereas with legacy transport, distance can actually make certain things impractical. And when you combine that with size, it can make it impractical as well. I was just with a customer that prior to Aspera, if they were to use an electronic file upload and transfer, it would have taken them 24 days. And with Aspera, we moved that. Obviously, the size is huge, but we moved that down to about 16 hours in this particular instance. Completely game-changing for their process. So one of the things I want to get into is our adaptive rate control here. We have the ability to control the bandwidth that we consume, as I've mentioned before. It can be done on the fly. It can be done per flow, or it can be done by job prioritization. So if you look at the image here on the right, what is an orange color, I'm not sure how it's displaying to all of you, but what is an orange color is the first file coming in, and we're consuming as much of the bandwidth as we're allowed. Then the blue line, or the teal line, comes in, and it's a second file or data set, and we split the bandwidth that's available. And it's automatically done in this case. And then a third file comes in, which is the green line. That file happens to be a higher priority file. So what we do is we give more bandwidth to that file and split the remaining bandwidth with those other two files that came in. And then when the high priority file goes through, we go back to splitting the file amongst those other two if they haven't already completed. So it's a smart bandwidth adjust, if you will, that allows you to share multiple files, simultaneously or in parallel. So in a very broad view, what Aspera has is a set of transfer servers that, as I mentioned before, can operate in any deployment model that you want and in pretty much any major cloud that you want. We are based on the FAST protocol. What we have are a set of transfer clients that you can use depending upon what device you have and depending on what your application requirements are. We've also got a set of web applications, and I'm actually going to show you one of the web applications in process here in a little bit. And we have three web applications that you'll want to know about. One of them is something called Aspera Shares. The other one is something called Aspera FastX, and the third is Aspera for SharePoint. I'll get into FastX and Shares shortly here. We also have management and automation applications. We've got something called Console, which I will show you, that gives you insight into all of the transfers that are going on. And we've also got a workflow application that enables you to incorporate transfers and file shares into business processes and other applications. And we have the ability to do synchronization, and we see a lot of people using this for disaster recovery. So we also have a set of APIs, and those APIs are for essentially all aspects of Aspera, so that people can integrate with a variety of different capabilities within Aspera. It's called the Aspera Developers Network, and it's fully documented APIs with examples, etc. Quite a few of our customers are using our APIs to incorporate file transfer and workflows into their solutions. So here's an example of a use case, and I'll get into some live examples as well, of moving content from a location into the cloud. And it's just basically upload direct to object storage. Pretty simple use case, but I wanted to summarize it for you. The next one is intra-cloud. So if you're migrating content from one region to another, and you may want to be moving from one cloud type to another type, you can. It's very straightforward. It doesn't really matter to Aspera where you want the content to live. And people are using this for disaster recovery purposes. Some people in certain locations are using one cloud platform, and in other locations another cloud platform, due to some of the speeds, etc. Now, we also see people using Aspera On Demand, which is our cloud offering, with something called Aspera Shares, which is really a directory structure. and an access control structure, and it is a web application. And they're using it in different ways, right? They're using it with data centers that are on-prem. They're using it to share files to cloud platforms, and they're also using it for remote employees and also for contractors to be able to upload and share files and data sets, even if they happen to be outside of their firewall. We do support DMZ or demilitarized zone methodologies as well. So what I was talking about on the previous examples were sort of file sharing. What I've got here, and data set sharing. What I've got here is person-to-person delivery, and there's something called FastX, which is an application that enables somebody to upload some content to the cloud and then distribute it to pretty much anybody. So it's essentially taking the need to share files out of the mail system. As I mentioned before, I went to go and share this file with everybody, and I can't do that within mail because I can't share things outside of my firewall over 10 meg. So I'm using FastX to do that, and what we're doing is we are essentially just shipping it up to the cloud, and then from there sending off an email that somebody uses to download the content from the cloud if they have the right keys. Now, the other thing that we're seeing a lot of is people using Aspera to integrate with third-party SaaS applications within their process, within their business process. This is just an example of somebody authenticating to their application and then using Aspera to share that file or to upload the file and give it to the application. And then once the application is done, to then send it back to object storage for its final resting place. We also have something called an auto-scaling platform, and this was newly released. The auto-scaling platform essentially enables you to see the performance and scale up nodes or servers as needed. So you can scale up, you can scale down, and you get visibility into that through something called console, which I'll show you in a second. This is a very, very useful application or capability, I should say, if you've got a clustered environment. As everybody knows, one of the benefits of cloud computing is the parallel processing. We now can enable that parallel processing from an Aspera perspective and a file transfer perspective. So Aspera On Demand as a whole has four parts that I want to talk to you about, and then a little bit about the licensing and availability. So we've got a server on demand and application platform on demand. What they are is they're fast servers, and they sit as a virtual image and within cloud storage and with the cloud environment to then provide you with cloud storage. We've got integration with SoftLayer, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure that actually needs to be updated. We also have sort of an end degree of scale out. There is a theoretical unlimited number that we can do, and I say theoretical because we haven't found the limit, if there is one, and we don't believe there is one. The other thing is that the Aspera On Demand platform and server operate with all of our Aspera clients. So you might have a mobile client, you might have a web-based client, you could have a thick client for additional capabilities. We work with all of it. We also have Aspera Shares and Aspera FastX that can be added on to the transfer server. And then we also have Console On Demand. And I'll get into some of this in a little bit. Now, our licensing is based on usage. So you would buy an annual agreement based on usage or your estimated usage. So let's get into a little bit of what Aspera Server On Demand is. That's the core transport server that Aspera has. So if you want to potentially integrate into your application that you've got in-house or that you've got on the cloud, you would end up using the Aspera Server On Demand. If you want to add browser-based access, an unlimited set of clients, if you will, you can do that, and you would do that with the application platform on demand. I'm just trying to give you an idea as to the nomenclature of our product set that's available in the cloud. And we also have something called Aspera Shares, and I've been referring to that a little bit. With Aspera Shares, you can have visibility into a set of files, folders, and data sets, regardless of where the storage actually is. Doesn't matter to us if it's in SoftLayer, if it's in any cloud, if it's on-prem, or if it's in a hybrid situation. This gives you a folder structure, and it also gives you an access control capability. There are a variety of other things that it gives you, but I thought that would be the simplest way to describe it for this webinar. So then we also have FastSpecs on demand. And FastSpecs on demand, I think the best way to do this is to actually show you FastSpecs on demand. I believe what I need to do now, so if I share my screen, I'll go back over here. And this is FastSpecs that you're seeing right now. What we've got here is, this is a browser-based client using our Connect plugin, which is available to everybody. I'm going to send a file to Michael, and let's see here, I'll just say test file, and you can put in anything like links, etc. in this. And I don't want to have it encrypted at rest. By the way, all of our files can be delivered, or they can be encrypted at both at rest and in flight. And I think that's really important to note because a lot of people are using FTP, and one of the areas that's not secure with FTP is at the time you go from in flight to at rest. It actually becomes a little bit of a hole that somebody can actually grab the file or data set if they want to within FTP. And so we address that. So I'm going to browse for the files here, and I'll go to my desktop, down, here you go. I'll add this, it's 15 meg. I'm going to browse for some other files as well. I am on a home network that is light in capacity, shall I say, or bandwidth. And you'll see in a little bit that really doesn't matter to me at all. This is a fairly large video file that I'm putting in. You can drag and drop files here as well. So I'm going to send this package, and what I'm doing right now is uploading it. And you'll see that I've got about 125 meg that I'm uploading with an average of probably about 24 megabits per second. And in most cases, that wouldn't happen from the home network. By the way, I think I have 2 iPads, 2 iPhones, and an Android tablet and my laptop connected to the network. And that's just me, not my kids and my wife that actually have these devices as well. I'm bringing that up because I mentioned being able to play nice, with other traffic. This is just an example of that. So now you'll see I'm done. Now, that is pretty fast when you really look at it, right? Because I just sent 125 meg over my connection with a 24.1 megabit per second average, and I did it in under a minute. In most cases, you wouldn't even be able to do that. Why am I spending some time on this? Not because I'm trying to just share FastSpecs, but the key here is behind FastSpecs is the core of Aspera. What I've got going on is the application platform and Aspera FastSpecs, and also the console. So I've got all of those happening here in the background, and I wanted to just give you an idea what the experience is from a speed and reliability perspective. So I hope that people appreciate that. I'm going to go back. I guess I stopped sharing my screen now, and I'm assuming it goes back into slide 28.
You got it.
Okay, fantastic. By the way, Michael, let people know when you get that file.
I got the email link moments after you did it, and have not downloaded yet, but I'll start downloading it right now.
Yep. There's a reason I'm going to ask you to download it, because we actually track that behind the scenes so that we can go into it. Now, what we've got here is Aspera console, and the console gives you visibility into all things Aspera. So if you take a look at it, what it does is it lets you go in and look at all of your Aspera nodes and all of the transfers that are going on and have gone on. So it gives you full capability. It also allows you to put in rules, etc. So this is a screen that just gives you an idea of quite a few active transfers. This is, believe it or not, live streaming that's going on using our fast stream API. And you can see there are a variety of workflows that are happening, or jobs, I should say, that are happening. And we're tracking both the inbound and the outbound delivery of that content. The Aspera console has, out-of-box templates, and of course you can customize those as well. This is an example here of what one of our customers before process looked like, which is the legacy one, the black one. And then after they started using console, just out-of-box template, this is what it looked like for them. You can see it's a lot easier to understand what's going on. We actually are releasing an analytics engine that is going to be able to identify where the bottlenecks are. So if you've got potentially a router that looks to be going down in the area, we're going to understand where the bottleneck is. We won't necessarily understand what it is, but we'll understand it's in XYZ location. So you can do some reverse engineering there and figure it out. And so that's actually pretty exciting to us, because it just gives you some ideas to how intense we're viewing the need out there to be able to get real-time visibility into your network transfer capabilities.
So, Tom, I have received those files whenever the mix.
You have received them?
Yep.
Okay, let me actually just go into my system. Yep, okay, I'm going to go back in and share my screen again. And you should be seeing my screen now. The color scheme likes to change.
Yep,
so what you can see is Michael downloaded it. So this just recorded that it had been a partial package download. When it's completed, we'll get another update when I refresh the screen, and it will show active download. So, Michael, I'm assuming you did that. It downloaded pretty quick as well, right?
Yeah, I think for the two files combined, it was under 45 seconds.
Yep, which is pretty impressive when you start thinking about it. So we also have the ability to do synchronization of files. So a lot of people are doing this with rsync. So we can synchronize millions of small files or data sets, and we can also synchronize files. I want to make sure people understand we're not an email archive and replication, if you will, but it's really around data set and file synchronization. A lot of people are using this for disaster recovery purposes, and we're seeing a lot of movement into the cloud for that. So this just gives you an idea of some of the use cases for synchronization. As I said, disaster recovery, continuity for distribution systems and mirroring, and also for collection and distribution systems in a hub and spoke fashion. And of course, we're seeing a lot of data migration from one environment into another environment into the cloud. We also have mobile solutions that are applications that we've released. We've got an iOS SDK, an Android SDK, and we have applications as well. So you can actually incorporate Aspera capabilities into mobile applications. As Michael had said, one of the things that insurance companies do is they take pictures of accidents and of claims. And you might envision being able to use Aspera to reliably upload those to the back end, to their corporate environment, to be able to process that claim very, very quickly, and without having to wait for an agent to come home to send them. So here's an example that you may not be aware of, but Aspera is responsible for moving all of Netflix's content from their on-prem implementation that they had a number of years ago into the cloud. We are so important to them in the cloud and in their business environment today that they stood up, and they happen to use AWS. I think most people probably know that. They stood up at AWS reInvent and said the two critical technologies to our business in the cloud is S3 and Aspera. I bring that up because it just gives you an idea as to the fact that it's an extremely reliable solution. Obviously, performance for them is critical, both on the ingestion and on the delivery, and we help them in both places. So this is sort of what their architecture looks like. They are using Aspera Shares along with the Aspera on-demand platform, and they also have browser-based clients that some of their external content contributors are using. So they don't have to download a client. They just go into a web application or go to the URL for the web application and contribute their content and consume the content as they need to. This is the reason, by the way, I'm doing some of the media companies is that they live and die by whether or not they can do this. Without Aspera actually doing this, their business model would be different. And again, that means that if there's any form of a delay or if it's not reliable, they wouldn't be using it. So UFC, for people that watch it, it's fights that gets delivered from live events. There's a video, when I share this with you, there's a video that talks about the fact that Aspera completely changed their business process. Prior to Aspera, they had to take reels of video, literally, and bring them to corporate to put them into the rest of the business process. Now what they're doing is they're using Aspera as about 95% of their process, and the other 5% is the editing. So they were previously spending an enormous amount of time just waiting for content. Now, waiting for content isn't just about doing things sort of in an old-fashioned way. We have a company in India that is now using Aspera because they were shipping files from India to the UK to a variety of companies in the UK simultaneously. And because the files and data sets were so large, they would do them at night. They were using FTP, and they had kind of a click and pray model, which was if it didn't complete, they had to redo it in the morning. And you can imagine it would delay their business process. They implemented Aspera, and they saw 500 times increase in speed and reliability that they just did not have before. So they completely changed their business process because now people can work on the content throughout the day and not have to wait overnight for the content to become available. So again, this is UFC. I think I went through this. When I share the files, you'll be able to go through more of this detail. But I think the key is they're sharing files from Ireland to Brazil and to Las Vegas for a variety of reasons and a variety of connection types that exist. But Aspera normalizes all of that and allows them to understand exactly how fast the files are going to be there, and also to be able to have governance over that file distribution. So this is just an example of they're now using a live stream. Why am I bringing up live streams? If you're not doing video, who cares, right? Well, actually, if you're doing sensor data, it becomes something that people do care about. And if you're getting images from the field, it is something that people care about. So it's not just video. I wanted to bring this up because it really has to do with whether or not the process can benefit from real-time distribution of the content. And so we're helping the UFC do that. Now, just some quick case studies here. Prosecco, you see an image of a truck, kind of looks low-tech. Those cameras don't exactly look brand new, do they? But that doesn't really matter. This is a company that ships containers, as in shipping containers, and their process requires them to go around all the ports that they have their containers going into, take pictures of them, send them back to corporate to determine whether or not they're actually going to be able to turn that inventory and get it on the next ship. It's pretty important to their business. They were they were using their mobile devices, wireless, to share the photos that were being taken from these cameras. And it was not reliable. They would have to do resends if the connection wasn't good, and they would have to make telephone calls to corporate to find out did it come through or not. Now, using Aspera, we've given them reliability. We've basically increased that process of click to share, if you will, by 100%. We've reduced that time by 100%. And they now can continue to use their mobile device or their wireless connectivity and know that it's reliable and it's going to be fast, and we're going to leverage as much of that connectivity as we can get. Codemasters is a software development company that's using Aspera to share their code. We've got a variety of customers that are doing that, and one of the reasons for that is that a lot of times this code is pretty big, actually, and they're using FTP traditionally to share it, and it's slow and unreliable. Everybody knows what that image is on the right. Apple is using us for iTunes to ingest the content, but also using us to deliver content to their stores. Why? Because the connectivity in those stores is variable. As most people know, a lot of them are in malls, and they have to rent that connectivity. In a lot of cases, they can't get everything they want, but then their content is PDFs, videos, etc. So I won't go through every one of these, but NetApp, we've got a case study here that talks about the fact that we saved NetApp $1 million. They had a problem in that their customers have issues occasionally, so they have to generate log files, and to share those log files, they have to upload them, and the center, the upload, was in California, and it still is in California now. They were looking at building out data centers that were close to their customer locations around the world. They found Aspera, and now they don't have to do that. We saved them $1 million in build out, and now when somebody uploads a file, the customer service rep can have that file immediately to look at the log file with the customer, literally reducing hours of delay time and a lot of customer frustration. Here are the advantages of Aspera on demand. You've got the ability to get as much speed out of your network as possible and out of the WAN as possible. You've got the ability to set rules and based on people and also based on data set and file type. You've got a very, very secure environment that can leverage encryption if you want it. It doesn't have to be. We actually don't have to change the file. We can take the file or data set as it is and move it, so we don't have to do any compression. We are a software-only solution, so that means that we have low overhead to the performance of any network, and we've got the ability to support the deployment options that you might want. You may want to go with one cloud for one part of your process and maybe another cloud for another, or on-prem. It doesn't matter to us. We can support the deployment options that you have. And for me, that's it. Obviously, we can open this up to questions. I hope that people have found this useful.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. I think we're running a little short on what we had originally scheduled for time. So rather than open it for questions, I think what would be helpful is if folks have got questions, we've got contact information that on the slides, and we'll forward that out to everyone as well. I very much appreciate people joining today, Tom. I really love the wide variety of use cases that are built into Aspera. There's just a lot of places where it's useful, including moving the content to the cloud. So appreciate you taking the time with us today. As I mentioned, this is the first of 4 sessions we're doing around emerging technologies, particularly around data. The next session is a week from today, where we'll be talking about reducing your data footprint with getting rid of redundant, obsolete, or trivial data, how to find it, how to clean it up, and how to find the diamonds in the rough that you may actually want to do some analytics with. And you can register for that at evolvingsol.com under the Education and Events section. I appreciate everyone joining today. Thanks again, Tom, and everybody, please have a great week.